to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm ready to talk week 2 of the NFL. But first, let's bring on my co-host, Joe Dalio, then our special guest, Dylan Schmittler. So without any more hesitation, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
I am doing great. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm good. I got the Bills hat on from our win Thursday. They proved us wrong with our predictions, and can't wait to talk about the Jags Monday night game with our special guests. We're going to be bringing them on pretty soon. But what's going on in your neck of the woods right now?
We look forward to it. Things are good here. Beautiful weather. Still getting some golf rounds in and some outdoor stuff. So beautiful, like around 80 degrees for the last week or so in Buffalo, New York, and it's going to stay that way. So, definitely beautiful weather. I'm thinking for that Monday night game, the way it looks right now, we're still almost a week away, but looks good. Looks like it's going to be amazing weather for that game. So hopefully the forecast holds true.
Yeah, we'll hope Mother Nature sends a strong message, a good message that way. So now let's bring in our special guest, Dylan. Anyway, here's Dylan. Hey, Dylan, this is your first time on the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. By the way, Joe, I'm glad the Jags played the Bills week 3 and not week 14 or 15, because the last time the Jags played in Orchard Park, I think Leonard Fournette was ejected from the game.
I remember that game. We've talked about it on the show here. I definitely remember that game, and we've certainly mentioned that. Yeah, I think the Bills would have a big advantage in that game, but you're lucky as Jags fans that they're coming early here and it's still warm.
By the way, I am the host of the Big D podcast. You can also see my work on the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page, where it might be a baseball draft, it might be football, baseball, NASCAR, golf. Try and get everything.
Awesome.
That's great. So anyways, let's are we ready to talk about the Thursday night game between the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins?
Let's do it.
Okay. The Bills started out fast with Josh Allen throwing a screen pass to James Cook. Let him cook because he's the chef, scoring a touchdown to bring the score 7-0 Buffalo. But the Dolphins would respond with their own TD to knock the score at 7 at the end of the first quarter. With the Bills starting out the second quarter with a long drive, they ended with a field goal, good, making the score 10-7 Bills. The Bills would then add 2 more touchdowns to patent their lead 24-7. Then with 4 seconds left in the first half, Jason Sanders made a 34-yard field goal to make the score Bills 24, Dolphins 10 at the half. James Cook tied Thurman Thomas's record for a Bills running back by having 3 touchdowns in the first half. And it's a good thing to tie old Thermal's record. Thermal Thomas, as Chris Berman would used to say. We love him. With 7:27 left in the third quarter, a 31 interception return by Jamarcus Ingram brought the final score by squishing the fish, 31-10. So, Joe, what did you think of Jamarcus Ingram's incredible 2-interception game?
It was great. And, we talked backstage how we both got this one wrong. We both picked the Dolphins to win this game. And we don't mind being wrong in this case. So certainly just an amazing performance by the Bills. It's always great to have a dominant performance against a divisional opponent. That was just one of the highlights there that you mentioned. I thought Ingram's, pick 6 there was pretty much the icing on the cake. I thought that was, the dagger for the Dolphins. But, there was so many things here and statistical things and people having great games. You just mentioned James Cook there with the 3 touchdowns and tying the record there. One name that we didn't mention a lot in this game is some guy named Josh Allen. There's so many games that, you got to rely on Josh Allen to be Superman here. And it's up to him. And if he, doesn't play that Superman role, the Bills don't win. Josh Allen kind of just went to the background in this game and, really didn't do much. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he only had 139 yards passing. He did have a passing touchdown he did have 1 touchdown, but only ran the ball twice. We're so used to seeing him run the ball on multiple occasions, 2 rushes for 2 yards. So great to have a win without Josh Allen really involved. Again, receiving by committee, 6 players caught passes. Khalil Shakir with 54 yards and 5 catches led the team. On defense, you were talking about Jamarcus Ingram and his 2 interceptions. How about some guy named Damar Hamlin? I mean, this guy just continues to get better. He led the team with 8 solo tackles and 10 overall. Balin Spector and Dorian Williams, again, another guy who continues to get better. They had 10 total tackles as well. And, I'm sure we're going to be talking about, Tua here. But ironic, and so with this conversation I heard somewhere before, the guy that, put the finishing touches on him was Damar Hamlin. Not purposely, of course, didn't go there with the intention of knocking him out of the game. But, from a guy who we saw, with a major issue on national TV, and we've seen Tua with multiple times, situations on national TV. I found it very ironic that it was Damar Hamlin that delivered that knockout blow. So again, when you play a game like this against a divisional opponent, a dominant win, that is definitely a positive step for the Bills. And certainly, again, I'm glad we were wrong about it. And, the Bills put a stamp on this game with exclamation points.
Yes, they did. And we were worried. Like I said, we were worried about this game, especially after the slow starts in Arizona and barely getting by. But even in that game, they showed what they could do when they are struggling and they come back and win like good teams are supposed to do. Like the Bills are, if they want to keep putting a stamp on being an AFC East power and eventually winning the Super Bowl, they got to come back from these games and win and then follow it up with performances like this.
I was more worried about the defense in this game, to be honest with you. It's funny because my nephew and I both have the Bills and the Jets defenses on our fantasy teams. And he asked me, he's like, okay, which one should I play? And I said, it's an easy decision. I said, I'm afraid the Bills are going to get torched by the Miami offense, which, was fully, possible and happening. I said, the Jets had a bad game, their first game with their defense. They're playing Tennessee, who doesn't exactly have an offense that lights it up. I said, easy decision, play the Jets defense. And, the Jets defense played well, but, certainly didn't anticipate how well the Bills defense was going to play here.
I was thinking the same thing, but remember, Joe, it's one of those things where it's not the question of, is it a talented defense? It's just reloading with a young defense. That's what it is. The talent's still there, but it's inexperience still replacing some veterans. But having a coach like Sean McDermott with a young D, you knew he was going to eventually get it going when they don't. And kind of like how they used to say the Patriots don't rebuild, we reload.
Yeah.
The Bills don't rebuild on defense, they reload.
So far, that's seeming to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Dylan, it must be public pain right now to be a Jaguars fan. But I want to ask you a question. So in week 1, the Jaguars played Miami. and had a 17-7 lead at the half. But what did Miami do coming out in the second half, adjusting to beat your team, or was it the Jaguars not doing enough? What are your thoughts?
I think it was more or less Jacksonville self-destructing because Holland stripped Travis Etienne on the goal line and punched out like Peanut Tillman, and then the next play, Tua finds Tyreek Hill for an 80-yard touchdown. So instead of going up 24-7, Jags are now up 17-14. And then I don't know what happened to the offensive line. It seemed like the offensive line fell asleep, like Trevor was on his butt a couple times. The offense forgot that you could actually move the ball. It helps to move the ball. And then for some reason, I think Christian Kirk plays. I hope Christian Kirk plays. And he's thought, like, what's going on? I know Evan Ingram didn't play week 2, but Christian Kirk's got to be there.
I know the answer to that, Dylan. It's a simple answer. He's on my fantasy team, so that's why he's not doing anything right now. So
I drafted Kirk I've got Kirk in my dynasty and one of my big money leagues this year. So welcome to the club.
It's all my fault, and I apologize.
Well, and guess what? Not to add to the victim blaming here, but here's another funny thing, Joe. Right? I was born November 18th, 1996, and I'm a Bills fan. Right? Guess when Christian Kirk was born?
Oh no!
November 18th, 1996.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, Andy Isabella was born that day too. Actually, the former Bills receiver.
What was the date in '96?
November 18th.
Oh, so your birthday? Okay, so
yeah, that's Christian Kirk's birthday too.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, that same season. It was the 96 season. The Jags beat the Bills in the playoffs. And then
that was Kelly's last game as a Bill at home. It was in Buffalo, too.
I remember that game very well. I was watching it with a bunch of Jaguars fans. Family reunion on Long Island, actually. And my cousin was living in Jacksonville. Huge. He was good friends with that offensive line. Who's that Hall of Fame offensive line?
Tony Costelli.
Yes. And he was good friends with him. And they went to all the games and we watched it together. I thought the Bills had it, but it didn't turn out that way. But, before we move on too, I'm curious as a neutral observer, Dylan, to this Thursday night game. What were your thoughts on this game? I don't know if you got a chance to catch it, but as a neutral observer here, what did you think?
I was befuddled that Miami's offense particularly could not get anything going. Not having Raheem Mostert, but for some reason, Buffalo did a great job with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't know what it is, but Buffalo does an amazing job taking away Tyreek Hill. Every time I see Tyreek Hill play against Washington or play against Jacksonville, or play against some of these other teams, the Giants. Tyreek Hill goes 8 for 180. But against the Bills, I don't know if it's because Sean McDermott plays a lot of cover 2, plays 2 deep safeties, double teams Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill never torches the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
He did one time in the AFC Championship game, though, when he was with the Chiefs against the Bills then, but anyway, it's a combination of that too, Dylan. It's like last year Buffalo played an aggressive blitz, go after them type of defense. But this year with Bobby Babich, it was basically play what Kirk Herbstreit said, play cover 2 and just keep everything in front of them. And they did a great job at doing that. So
that's why nobody's throwing 80-yard bombs anymore. Nobody wants to give up the bomb. They'd rather you go 12, 15 plays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or dink and dunk, right? But Joe, with the Bills playing a short week, how do you think the players adjusted to that, even with some key injuries to Terrell Bernard and even Teron Johnson being out with his injury?
You know, it's a good question because every team that plays on Thursday Night Football has to do that. And it's a question I've always wondered, not only for the Bills, but just for all teams that have to play on Thursday Night Football. And really, I think that's where coaching comes in. So I think you have to credit Sean McDermott for this, you know, for the short turnaround with those injuries that you mentioned, and for them to still come out with a performance like this. This wasn't so much a Miami collapse. I mean, you know, they didn't do things well. And as Dylan mentioned, I mean, they just couldn't get it going offensively. Now, I do have Achane on my fantasy team, and he gave me 29 points, so I was happy about that. He had a good game. But really, they couldn't get anything going offensively here. And, you know, the Bills just, again, were dominant on both sides of the ball. And I think that's coaching. And, you know, we've criticized McDermott, you know, for not having the team ready in preseason, and even, you know, maybe a little bit for the slow start against Arizona week 1. But certainly that could be erased because the Bills showed up ready to play this game. And that's, you know, I credit McDermott for that. So, you know, it's just a matter of making whatever adjustments you can, being as prepared as you can. And again, it's not just unique to the Bills, but not every team comes out like that on a Thursday night. In fact, if you look at these Thursday night games, there's a lot of teams, they seem to start slow. You know, there's historically the under hits, you know, about 60+% of the time in these games. And I think it's just because of the difficulty in getting a team ready coming from Sunday to Thursday. And again, the way the Bills kind of defied that and just, you know, put a dominant stamp on this game, I think shows, again, how McDermott had them ready for sure.
Definitely. So Joe, what do you also think of Cookie there, tying Thermal Thomas's record of 3 TDs in the first half?
Well, I think Cookie is slowly becoming one of the top running backs in the entire NFL. He, you know, kind of taken after his brother there. But I think that's pretty impressive there. I mean, Thurman Thomas is one of the best running backs in the history of the league. And when you're tying one of his records like that, you know, in a primetime game, very impressive. But James Cook just continues to get better and better and better. And I think you can have him in the conversation of at least top 10 running backs in the league, if not maybe even top 5.
Yeah, I mean, especially in an era where we don't draft running backs in the first round, we don't pay them and we kind of devalue them a little bit. But that shows you that you can still have a running game like we do and a superstar quarterback like Josh Allen. It's complementary football. You can still play old school, win in the trenches, and throw the ball even in an era like this. So
I think Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, came in midway through last season, made a big commitment to James Cook because every game it was Josh Allen. And we saw, I think it was Dallas week 15 when James Cook went nuclear.
Yeah, that was old school. That was old school, like Lou Saban style football there, where you just basically run it on every play down their throats up the gut. And Josh Allen only threw the ball 15 times that game too, because it was cold weather. And Joe, just like, you know, how when we say, what do you got to do at Yankee Stadium to the home run where you pop the ball up? What do you got to do in the cold weather late when you're the Bills at home and you got James Cook pound the rock, right?
Yeah, you can't pop the ball up in Buffalo. But, you know, I like what Dylan said too. It's kind of, you could see the progress last year, but when Brady came in, it seems like that progress accelerated. So I never thought of that, to be honest with you, but that makes a lot of sense. And I look at the start that he's off to this year. But yeah, and he comes in handy in a situation like that. Again, when you're not putting the ball up in the air, when, you know, it's 20 degrees and 20-mile-an-hour winds here. So that's a very good point too, Jamie, is that you need to have somebody that's reliable in running the ball and pounding the rock, as you said, and to have a guy that does it this well, certainly will come in handy when we get to that point.
Yep. And that's how that's what we did actually in the playoffs with the Steelers. We did that, and we actually did that to Kansas City before we lost that game in the first half. I think we were up at the half because we controlled the time of possession against in the first half, but we didn't really do that in the second half. So
Exactly.
So moving on to Sunday's 1:00, Aaron Rodgers discount double check and the New York Jets and the at Tennessee Titans game. Now I got to admit that I went out swimming. As living in upstate New York in September, you have to take advantage of every beautiful day you get late in this month. And we had an 83 beautiful degree sunny day on a Sunday. How about that? Sunny day on a Sunday.
There you go.
So now I'm going to turn it over to Joe for the highlights. Please take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Jamie. Now, I was able to watch this game. Actually, we were celebrating a birthday here, and I had a friend who's originally from New York, a big Jets fan, that we were able to watch this game here. Now, I'll be honest with you. I thought, the Titans were going to keep this close. They were 4.5-point underdogs, and I thought this was one of the better picks out there. So I definitely thought it would stay within that 4.5. I thought the Titans actually had a decent chance to win this game, beforehand. So it was going to be interesting, though, because on the other hand, as I said before, the Jets defense, that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, had a subpar performance against the 49ers in the opening Monday night game. So I knew they were going to tighten things up. I said, they're going to clamp down and, maybe get some offensive rhythm going here. So the fact that the Titans are not the best offense, I thought would be also have the Jets, in their favor. So it was kind of, tough, on both sides there. But I thought, like I said, the Titans would keep it close, but they didn't even cover the spread. Now, for the Jets, Braylon Allen had a couple of touchdowns. Who the heck is Braylon Allen? I don't really know.
20-year-old rookie running back from Wisconsin.
There you go.
Backup to Breece Hall. I have Breece Hall on my fantasy team.
Okay, and Breece Hall didn't have a bad game. He had 62 rushing yards, which is maybe a little low for him, but he still had 7 catches for 52 yards, and he did have a receiving touchdown. So, Breece Hall had a decent game there, but Braylon Allen was the one getting the rushing touch. Actually, one of those was a receiving touchdown, and the other one was a rushing one. And, his stats weren't that impressive, but still 2 touchdowns. But except now I'm curious as to who had Braylon Allen on their fantasy team. Now, Aaron Rodgers, I thought, was good. He wasn't overly impressive. But again, what would you expect of a 40-year-old coming off a busted Achilles here? But he got the job done, 176 yards passing with a couple of touchdowns, as is typical for Aaron Rodgers, did not turn the ball over. And, 6 other Jets caught passes. The biggest thing in this game, though, was
Will Levis with the dumbest play of the year.
Right, with 2 dumb plays here, actually. But that was the key. I just said Aaron Rodgers not making mistakes. Well, Will Levis, and again, the coach was very unhappy with him. But, just an interception and a fumble, and the one time was in the red zone. And, yeah, I mean, it's sad because he did have a pretty good game statistically, like close to 200 yards with a touchdown, and he ran for 38 yards. The prop for him was only like 10.5, so I took that one, and then he got me a couple of pennies there. But and Calvin Ridley had a good game for them with a touchdown, 77 yards too. So the key, though, in the NFL, and as we're going to talk about in another game coming up here, is you can't make mistakes at the worst times. And Will Levis did that twice, and he cost his team the game because of that.
And yeah, what kind of bothers me, Joe, is like when these announcers say, "Oh, it's 2 turnovers is the reason why," or whatever. It's like they always seem to like act like turnovers aren't a big deal. But what do coaches and players always say? Win the turnover battle, and they come in bunches.
And that's what happened here. And hopefully Will Levis learns from that. He seems like he's smart enough to learn from those mistakes. And again, it's going to be a tough year in Tennessee. Everybody knew that. But Will Levis is just one of those guys you want to see do well. And I think
he's
time
learning
will tell.
to pop.
Yeah, I think he's smart enough to not make these same type of plays again. And we'll see. Maybe Tennessee can sneak up on some people later on in the season.
I think the potential of him to being a good quarterback, you can see it. It's there. The potential's there for him. He just has to put it together.
Honestly, Will Levis is never going to be a quality starting quarterback. He looks like he should be on one of those metrics World's Strongest Man competitions. But this guy lacks maturity. He's almost too big. Josh Allen's big, but he can move around. Pat Mahomes got the dad bod, but he can move around. Will Levis almost is too. I don't know. He's too immobile and just makes way too many dumb plays.
Right. I know
he's got a lot of talent with Ridley, Hopkins, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. That's a game the Titans should have won, and Will Levis flat out blew.
Yeah.
But like I said, to play devil's advocate, Dylan, he's still a young quarterback. He can learn. He's still young enough to be able to be coached up and learn from that too.
I don't know. I mean, we've already seen one team bench his starting quarterback from last year's draft class.
Well, seeing the coaches,
yeah, but that guy makes Will Levis look like Josh Allen, and I like Bryce Young, but still.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young, I think, is already being benched,
and it's Carolina too, Dylan. Take it with a grain of salt.
This coach, I forget Tennessee's coach, but he was
Brian Callahan.
Very upset. Yeah, thank you. He was very upset, and I half expected Levis to come out of this game. I thought maybe I don't know who their backup is even, but
Mason Rudolph.
All right.
He's serviceable. He didn't do bad with Pittsburgh.
No. And so it would have made sense. I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have benched Levis, in the fourth quarter of this game and try to get a comeback out of Mason Rudolph, create a controversy and go forward from there. So I think Levis is teachable and he can learn from this, but I also agree that he doesn't have a lot of time to prove himself either. So if they don't see results, and again, Mason Rudolph has done decent in the past. So if you don't start seeing results, then that you might have to make a move. And now, no offense to the other teams in that division, but if you're a team in the AFC South, you got to feel like you go on a winning streak and you got a chance here. Because you got one team that's 2-0, and you got a bunch of other ones that are 0-2. So we keep saying about, and we'll talk about this later on, but Houston's got that tough schedule that I'm not so sure that they're ready to handle it. I mean, 2 games great so far, but I'm not so sure that Houston is ready for prime time yet. And you get some teams, if Jacksonville or Indianapolis, who I think still is going to win that division. Or them, or even I doubt it would be Tennessee, but you go on a 3-game winning streak here, and you're right back in this divisional race. So the time frame that they have, I think, to make that Levis has to prove himself is short.
I think Indy's looking for revenge too. I mean, they felt like they played well enough against Houston in week 1 to win that game. It was just a couple plays that they didn't make towards the end.
And that's it. Houston, it hasn't been that impressive. Again, the Colts could have easily won that game. And I didn't think Houston was dominant in Sunday night's game. So, they're going to play some tough teams coming up. And I think they lose a lot of those games. So, we'll see.
I mean, watching Sunday night's game. I mean, Houston. I mean, CJ Stroud's amazing. We know what Nico Collins can do, The Texans just make way too many dumb penalties. So lucky the one linebacker wasn't ejected for punching Roshan Johnson.
But yeah, I didn't see that part, but yeah, like I said, nothing against Houston. I mean, they really proved themselves last year. CJ Stroud is amazing, and an amazing core of wide receivers, of course. As I've said on this show in the beginning, and I just think that they snuck up on everybody last year, and they're not sneaking up on anybody this year. And again, they got a lot of tough games coming up.
Yep. So now we're gonna move on to the 425 game as the team that Brian Callahan used to be the offensive coordinator for until he went to the Titans. The Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Slim Shady Burrow, with his haircut, and at the Kansas City Chiefs, who are kind of being like the New England Patriots and have the NFL broken. So, with the Chiefs facing a potential game-ending 4th and 16 play, Mahomes' pass was incomplete, but it's the Chiefs. What ends up happening? A costly pass interference call was made that gave Harrison Buckner, the newly signed $25 million man self-made deal, by the way, which was awesome that he did that. A chance to kick a 51-yard field goal to give the Chiefs the victory, 26-25. So, Joe, I'm kind of noticing this. The Ravens tried to do this, right? And it sort of worked. But the Cincinnati Bengals did this too. You notice Kansas City's running the ball more. And so what did you think of Cincinnati's game plan, where I feel like it was working and it gave them a chance to win? So they said, okay, we're going to dare you to basically just keep running it, to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands and basically prevent him from throwing to Kelsey. And that part's worked because I have him on fantasy and he hasn't really done anything for me, Travis Kelsey. And even in that game, he only caught one ball. And even against the Ravens, I think he only had like 3 or 4 catches. So what do you think of that game plan? And do you think that's a blueprint for other teams now when they play them? Just dare them to run the ball to keep it out of Mahomes' hands to prevent them from throwing it to their superstar tight end.
Yes and yes, especially now because the Chiefs just lost a great running back here for a few games.
But they brought an old friend back in Kareem Hunt, by the way.
Yes. God. I did hear that they were talking to him. I didn't actually know that they got him back. So I guess they believe in forgiveness here. But it's still Kareem Hunt 2024 is not Pacheco 2024. So, that now go ahead and dare him to run because, I think that's going to hurt, the Chiefs offense. But it definitely worked here. Like you said, 1 catch for 5 yards, Travis Kelsey. Worthy, who had an amazing game on opening night, only caught 2 passes for 17 yards here. So, they really, besides, big offensive play with Rashee Rice there, these guys were held in check. So I think it definitely worked for the Bengals, and they should have won this game. Now you say the Chiefs and getting the calls and stuff. Now, again, the call was borderline. I'm curious. I'll ask you guys in a minute what you thought about it. But, it's one of those things that we were all rooting against the Chiefs, or at least we were here at our house. And it could have gone either way, I thought. Was it a penalty? Yes. Could it have been a no call? Yes. But, they called it and the Chiefs took advantage and it ended up winning. So, again, you talk about, key mistakes. I think it was the penalties here that hurt the Bengals, and again, we just talked about it with the other games, and it was the team that made the fewer mistakes at clutch times that ended up winning this game. But really, I thought statistically and throughout the game, the Bengals had this, and I definitely thought they were going to win it. And just, you could see the writing at the wall on the wall at the last drive there. But it, that call could have gone either way, and they called it. So, what do you guys think about that?
I hate when a game's determined by one call. We saw in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Eagles, but I see why that call was made. I mean, the rookie DB went into Rashid Rice there, and generally, if you do something bad, the refs are somebody's gonna throw the flag.
Right.
Although it's weird that the Chiefs seem to get every call.
Yes. Now, did you see it, Jamie? What did you? Was that a penalty?
The announcer said it was right, but I feel like it could have been border.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been so controversial if they didn't call it. I mean, for the refs, I mean, they were going to lose. People were going to complain either way. If you're on the Bengals side, you're going to complain that it was borderline. If you are on the Chiefs side, you're going to, well, it was definitely pass interference. So they had to call it one way, and I really have no criticism of the call.
It's funny that the Chiefs are 2-0, and I don't think Kansas City's playing. Well, yeah, they were one Isaiah Likely toe from potentially losing opening night, and
Right.
Patrick Mahomes was not great. He threw a terrible interception. I mean, the one that the first one really wasn't the one. One wasn't a bad pick. It was a great play by the Cincinnati player, but Mahomes has not looked sharp yet. Pacheco's now on IL with a fractured fibula. Travis Kelce is hanging out with his significant other because I haven't seen him make one play yet this season.
Right. That's so true. Now, that stinks for all of us. The fact that the Chiefs are not playing their best right now and they got a couple of wins already. What's going to happen when they start playing like the Chiefs? So,
right.
These are the games they've got to lose.
And by the way, I'm going to make a bold prediction. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to crush the Washington Commanders on Monday night.
I would not be surprised. I picked the Bengals to win the division. I still think they're going to win the division.
I think so too. I think the Bengals crushed the Commanders. I mean, Cincinnati played well enough to win that game. Burrow looked healthy. I mean, the running game scares me a little bit, but Jamar Chase, if he could keep his head on straight. Plus, I think T. Higgins might come back this week.
Mm-hmm.
The running game's a work in progress because they got a new guy in there replacing Mixon, but I think that can come with more practice a little bit and getting the offensive line to gel. So, but anyway, let's all talk about Sunday night Chicago Bears taking on the Houston Texans. With 34 seconds left in the game, the Chicago Bears needed to complete a 4th and 17 play to keep their game-winning drive alive, but Caleb Williams overshot his receiver, and the Houston Texans won the game 19-13. So, Dylan, you and I obviously, we're probably the only two on this platform that like Caleb Williams, and we see the potential in them going into the season. With him going up against CJ Stroud, how do you think this game could help him grow as a quarterback going forward in his rookie year?
I just wish, you know what? Do you remember the late Dennis Green's comment when he said after the Chicago Bears somehow came back to beat the Arizona Cardinals after
Bears who we thought they were, yeah.
That's it. Well, for you Chicago Bears, shame on you. Chicago still doesn't have a 4,000-yard passer. You haven't done offense. You won't do offense, and you already killed Mitchell Trubisky. You already killed Justin Fields, and now Caleb Williams is being killed. The Chicago Bears have given up a league-high 9 sacks, and when Caleb Williams is not being sacked, he's got 3 or 4 defenders chasing him, and somehow Dipsy doing. I'm not worried about Caleb Williams. I'm worried that he's got a defensive culture, a defensive head coach, an offensive coordinator who doesn't know how to set protections, sessions, and an offensive line right now that literally might be the worst in football. I mean, Baltimore might have a case. Baltimore and a couple of teams might have a case, but the Bears are who we thought they were. They can't do offense, won't do offense, and Caleb Williams is paying the price for it. Caleb Williams is fine. I mean, hopefully Keenan Allen comes back this week because I think the Bears need him over the middle of the field. Rome Duzing was playing with a bum knee, and DJ Moore, like yours truly, is frustrated because the Bears can't do offense.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, Joe, what do you think?
I agree with everything that was just said. No touchdowns in this game, 2 interceptions. I thought the Bears were working on improving the offensive line, but whatever they've done is not working so far. So really, again, I don't really have too much more to add to that because I think it's spot on. And that's going to have to change. I mean, if you're going to win in this league, yes, it's great to have excellent defense, but you got to develop the offense and you got to learn to score. And you got a guy here that's got so much potential that you don't want to waste. And I agree. The same thing happened with the previous 2 quarterbacks, especially Justin Fields. So you got to fix that fast because there's a lot of promise here and you don't want to waste that talent. And as Dylan said, kill this quarterback. Again, the focus was, I thought, the offensive line and helping this guy. He's got some weapons to throw to, but you got to protect him and or else A, is he not going to develop, but B, he's going to get hurt. So you got to come up with some quick solutions here. I don't know what those solutions are, but just, again, come up with the game plan that's going to get the right blocking schemes and get him protected so he can, do what he was brought in to do.
Hopefully Matt Eberflus won't be coaching the Bears this time next year.
If they don't do well this year, then I think that's going to happen because he was borderline coming into this year, right? There was a lot of question about whether he'd come back. And if the Bears have a subpar season and a disappointing season and you don't see the progress, I think it's inevitable that he would be one of the first coaches to go.
What I think could happen is they end up promoting an old friend of ours, Joe. Guess who their defensive coordinator is?
There's who's that? Leslie?
Eric Washington.
Oh, Eric Washington. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to promote a guy who has never really gotten a shot to be a head coach, but is from the McDermott tree and will do things in McDermott where you could promote him as the interim and see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that would be so Bears to get another defensive-minded coach.
That's the only thing, though. I was just thinking that is like you want to get somebody in here that can run an offense. I mean, you can't ignore the defense. The defense is already good, but I agree. I think you got to get somebody more offensive-minded here. I don't have any solutions or names at the moment, but they're not my concern. But I do agree that you got to go offense there if you're going to make a coaching change, which, again, if the Bears don't live up to expectation this year, again, if they don't make, even though it's not the end of the world if they don't make the playoffs, I think if they don't make the playoffs, even Eberflus is not coming back.
And like I said, you and I liked Eberflus, Joe. Like he did, at least, like I said, he was able to make the progression from year 1 to year 2. Now he just has to make the progression from year 2 to 3. So
yeah, and the expectations are a lot higher now than they were going into year 2.
Right. With that being said about the whole hiring an offensive coach, though, you also have to go back, though, revisionist history. Look at the Atlanta Falcons when they hired an offensive guy named Arthur Smith. Yes, the offensive line was good and everything, right? But what was the Achilles heel? The defense wasn't that good. So that's why they brought in Raheem Morris, even though he was a defensive guy. Because look at what you saw last night with that game. The offensive line and everything, that offense is still Arthur Smith's offense.
Mhm.
But Raheem Morris is coming in there to juice up the defense, and you saw that last night too.
Mhm. I will say though, if you bring in a coach, whether it's offense or defense, they have to have brains. So, oh, wait, did I say that about Arthur Smith? I'm sorry. We'll move on to the next one. Go ahead.
By the way,
Right.
it also helps you have a confident quarterback. And speaking of coaches for maybe coaches for the Bears, how about Clint Kubiak and what he's doing with a Derek Carr in New Orleans or Bobby Slovak in Houston.
Mhm.
Bobby Slovak comes out of that Sean McVay young guy type of coach, which that's
Yeah.
why I like him. So
Both of them come out of the Kyle Shanahan tree.
right. So
Right.
they run that 49ers offense there. So anyway, let's turn our attention to the Monday night game. Where unfortunately we won't be seeing Jason Kelsey front and center. That guy's a trip. I love him. The Falcons versus the Eagles. Anyways, with the Eagles up by 3 deep in Atlanta territory, it looked as if the Eagles were going to seal the game with a touchdown drive. But on an important third down play, Saquon Barkley dropped a wide open pass from Jalen Hurts, stopping the clock, holding the Eagles to a field goal, making the score 21-15. With 50 seconds left on the clock, Atlanta got the ball back, and Captain Kirk Cousins orchestrated a touchdown to Drake Awu, Werewolves of London, to not to score 21-0. And then after the extra point was good, the score was 22-21. Hot Atlanta. With the last drive for the Eagles, Hurts was picked off, and the Falcons took the game 22-21 in an exciting finish. So, Joe, what did you think about the 36-year-old's comeback play in that game, meaning Kirk Cousins? And guess what? That family's so talented that the Yankees have a pitcher. I wonder if Jake Cousins was watching that game, the relief pitcher for the
Yeah.
Yankees.
There you go. Or Dylan Cousins was watching it, the Sabres here.
No relation.
Yeah, no relation, of course. Now, in my old age here, I have a lot of difficulty staying up late. And I am missing a lot of classic endings here. I mean, opening night with the toe on the sideline, and other classic finishes here, including this one. Now, I was long gone into La La Land, thinking, oh, okay, the Eagles are going to pull away with this one. I lost a couple of picks here as far as I had the Eagles covering 6.5 points. I had them scoring over 27.5. And they didn't come close to either of them. Didn't see this coming. I have no faith in Atlanta. I will after this, because, again, in this type of situation, to make that kind of a comeback, I mean, Cousins had again, no mistakes. We were talking about the mistakes. And it was Atlanta who, in the Arthur Smith era, was making those kind of boneheaded plays and mistakes. Totally opposite this time. And, credit to the new coach, but credit to the new quarterback too, because, he definitely proved himself there. And, we were talking about James Cook being one of the top running backs in the league. What about somebody named Bijan Robinson? I mean, this guy just keeps getting better and better as well. Almost 7 yards a carry in this game. And, was clutch. So I got to say, even had I stayed awake for this game, I would have never seen this result coming. And, credit to Atlanta. And now the Eagles, who had some confidence going into this game and with a 2-0 start, a lot of teams picking them for the Super Bowl. I still am. But still, you got to wonder what this does to the confidence now that, losing a game like this at home when they had it. And a team like Atlanta, who's not usually the team that makes these comebacks, you got to see what it does to the psyche of the Eagles here. So time will tell, of course, but didn't see this coming. And maybe I'm going to have some more coffee on Thursday and Sunday and Monday nights here, because, these games are all turning out to be classics, and I haven't seen any of them.
By the way, Joe, I might be the only person who will admit and say I knew Atlanta was going to win that game. I just had a feeling, like, you get
Really?
that feeling 3 or 4 times. Like, I thought Atlanta was at a huge disadvantage facing Arthur Smith because he knew the Falcon players better than the Falcon coaches knew the Falcon players. Week
Right.
1. But week 2, Philadelphia's defensive line is not that great. And I mean, the Eagles are known for offense right now. They always get offensive mind coaches. Offensive line, Saquon. But there were a couple issues that worried me about Philly. No A.J. Brown. And yes, Devontae Smith's great. I think Devontae Smith's Philly's best route runner. But A.J. Brown can separate the defense. And without that, Philly didn't have a big play. And secondly, Philly's defense doesn't have a great pass rush. And Atlanta's got a very good offensive line. And Kirk Cousins not going to be running around coming off his torn Achilles. But you give him time, he can find the open receiver. I mean, Donovan Mooney caught a big touchdown pass. B. John. Who was Raymond McLeod? Drake London juking Darius Slay like he's LaDainian Tomlinson in his heyday.
And one day Kyle Pitts might wake up too.
Gosh, Kyle Pitts has been buried in the ball pit for the last 4 years.
He hasn't done anything, but that potential is there. And one of these days, perhaps, he wakes up. But yeah, they do have a bunch of weapons there. And again, Cousins stays healthy. They could make some noise. Now, again, a lot of the experts have been predicting the Falcons to win that division. It's not the strongest division. I picked, So I don't doubt that. My original pick to win the South is the Saints, and that's looking pretty good right now. But
that might be the pick of the century, having the Saints in the South right now.
Yeah. And so a lot of, most people, I mean, the Vegas odds had the Falcons winning it. And for all these reasons that we're mentioning, I'm sure. So, we'll see. It's turning out to be a pretty competitive division. I mean, Tampa's not going anywhere. Carolina's not going to be a factor, obviously, but they, and it sounds weird with talking about Carolina that, Andy Dalton makes them all of a sudden, instead of one of the worst teams possibly in the history of the league, he at least gives them a chance to win a few games here. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts.
Good news for Deontay Johnson fantasy owners, right?
Guess whose fantasy team he's on? So he's done squat, but I'm going to be stupid enough to keep him in for a couple of more games because that potential might, be realized.
We're going to get into that Carolina whole benching situation later on, but guess what? It is now that time in our show for the question of the week segment. So Dylan, with you being our guest and being new to our program, the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room, how question of the week works is it's like what you do when you give your trivia questions on open mics, but and I'm the moderator here for this. So what I do is I ask you a random question about NFL history, and you have 4 answers to choose from, and only one of them is correct.
Let's just see. He's got a much better chance of getting this right than the person that's usually asked the question.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, Dylan, you want to try it on here?
Yeah.
Okay, Dylan, here is your trivia question or question of the week for this week. Can you guess this NFL player? A, he was the number 1 overall pick, and B, he had 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Is it Peyton Manning or Peyton, like the commercial, Peyton? 2, Bart, baby, you can drive my car because I'm going to be a star. 3, Eli Manning. Or 4, your buddy Trevor Lawrence.
Wait a minute. Say it again.
Peyton Manning, Bart Starr, Eli Manning, Trevor Lawrence.
Wait, what was the question again?
Oh, can you guess this NFL player?
2. What do you have? 2.
He was the number 1 overall pick, and he had 2 Super Bowl MVPs.
Both Starr and Eli Manning both have 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Because Starr was the MVP of Super Bowl 1 and 2, and then Eli won 42 and 46.
One of them was a first-round pick, though.
Well,
Yeah,
Eli,
overall.
it would have been. Well, Eli would have been the 101, so it's Eli.
You got it. It was Eli Manning.
I think
Congratulations.
Lost Cole
Dylan.
was like in the 10th or 11th round coming out of Alabama. I don't know what round it was.
Right. When they had 12 rounds back then, instead of the 7. But that was a wild 12 rounds. It wasn't as organized then as it is now. And you didn't have Mel Kiper either. So anyway,
Thank goodness.
congratulations on getting that right, Dylan. That was awesome.
Thank goodness we didn't have Mel Kiper. Otherwise, who was the Colt GM?
Oh, Bill Tobin.
Bill. Who in the bleep is Mel Kiper?
Yeah. Mel Kiper has no more credentials to do what he's doing than my neighbor. And my neighbor's a postman. He doesn't even have season tickets to the NFL. That was great. But that made Mel Kiper famous, though. So anyway, moving on. Now that the Jaguars are coming to Western New York to take on the Bills on Monday Night Football, we all need to make our predictions on who will win the game and the score. Dylan, would you like to go first?
I'm not making a prediction because the last time I made a prediction, I ended up having to sing on my podcast because my best friend's a Dolphin fan, and you know me, I'm the Jag fan, and not only that I have to sing, but I bought a Miami Dolphin towel. I'm done making predictions.
All right. I'm going to ask you this question, though, before I give my prediction and Jamie gives his. Because I expected you to, of course, being the Jags fan, say that the Jags were going to win. Let me ask you this instead, though. If the Jaguars are to win this game, how are they going to do it?
One, Trevor Lawrence is going to have to get out of his funk because seemingly, I don't know what's happened, but he's like 0-7, and the Jags offense, despite having great weapons, has gone nowhere. 2, I think Travis Etienne is going to have to be big. Travis Etienne was a huge reason why the Jags won the game in London last year. 3, Trevor Lawrence and this team will make big plays. And 4, the Jags will force mistakes because Josh Allen's unbelievable, but he's 0-2 against the Jags. And first game 2021 was that one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. It was an ugly, low-scoring game where Josh Allen intercepted Josh Allen. And last year, I don't know if it was the travel, but the Bills did not come to play the first half. So maybe the Jags have Josh Allen's number.
Could be. So, Joe, what are your predictions?
Yeah, now certainly I think, the fact that Jacksonville's not playing in their home stadium in London, Jacksonville.
It might actually be an advantage because Trevor Banks Stadium is now turned into
I think they probably have a higher winning percentage in London than they do, because that's a second home stadium. It's like you play Jacksonville in London, it's a major disadvantage because they played so many games there. I just think, the Bills, they're going to have the rest advantage, first of all. And I think it's close early. I wouldn't be surprised if this game is tied at halftime. And I think there's going to be some points scored in this game too. My prediction is Bills 30, Jaguars 20. But I think it's close early, and then I think the Bills take it away fourth quarter and kind of ice it there. So again, I say 30-20 Bills. Okay,
so now here's what I think. The Bills are coming off a short week. Dominant performance. They got 11 days rest, but McDermott's got to keep the team focused even with their 11 days rest. They might have time to get Teron Johnson back. Terrell Bernard's on multiple weeks, but he'll have more time to heal with that. Excuse me. Like you said, Joe, I think it's a close game early, and then McDermott makes the coaching adjustments, and the Bills out-talent Jacksonville. I think the Bills are going to win 30-13.
Okay.
I will say this. I will say this could be a trap game for the Bills. Getting ready for coming off a near perfect game against Miami and then Baltimore next Sunday night.
I thought about that. I think that's why, again, it's going to be close early or, close or tied at halftime or something. But I think, again, McDermott cracks the whip enough to get them over that. And again, it's sloppy. But I had that in the back of my mind too, as a potential. And how much have we seen this in the NFL? We thought the Dallas Cowboys were a Super Bowl team after week 1. And then they turned back the clock to January of 24 against the Saints there. We thought, who else there? There's so many situations where a team looks like either the worst team ever, and then they come back and win. Or again, a team looks like a Super Bowl team, like, Philadelphia or Dallas, and they come out and lose the next game. Cleveland, we thought they got manhandled by Dallas. We were burying them. And then they come and play, unfortunately for you there, come and play a good game against the Jags. So, it's just, you never know in this league. And that's another thing I fear here. The Bills played almost a perfect game on the road, but now do you come back and lay an egg against, a team that's desperate and 0-2 and reeling and trying to, get back in the thick of things. So that is in the back of my mind. I am a little worried about that too. I think they overcome that late and take this game.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like we come to the end of our show. And we would like to thank our special guest, Dylan Schmittler, for coming on our show with all of his football knowledge. And Dylan, you were so great that guess what? You're invited on back anytime, man, when we need you.
Definitely.
Thank you, fellas.
No problem. You deserved it. You're a good man. Good things happen to good people. So anyway, Joe, where can we find you in the social media world Tuesday, September 17th, 2024?
Wow, halfway through September already. Can't believe that. Joe Dell Sports, not only some football, but getting excited that some of my favorites on the ice and on the courts are in the near future here. So we'll be talking about those on there too. Joe Dell Sports on Twitter X.
Mm-hmm. And Dylan, where can we find you?
At Dylan at Sports One, Spunky Spectrum Sports, host of the Big D podcast.
Mm-hmm. And then you can find me, yours truly, on Bills Chat 1 at Bills Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Driving to the Top Productions. Don't forget to like, comment, and ring that bell for notifications. For more content on Driving to the Top Productions, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook stream, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And remember, James Cook tied Thurman Thomas's record by scoring 3 touchdowns in the first half of the Bills-Miami game. The Carolina Panthers' goal is to win more than 2 games this season, hence why they benched Bryce Young. Kirk Cousins is still the captain of the ship in beating the Philadelphia Eagles 22-21. And to quote our friend Chris Berman, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. See you next time, folks.
All right. Good night, everybody.